Hi, my beautiful souls. Uh, Gossip isn't validation. People talking about you could mean anything, could mean admiration, could mean criticism, could mean casual mention, could mean absolutely nothing significant. So when content tells you people are talking about you, when it suggests your subject of discussion, when it implies significance in being talked about, it's activating your ego, making you feel important because you're being discussed, making you think you matter because you're occupying others' mental space. But being talked about isn't inherently positive, isn't proof of value, isn't validation of your worth. It's just information that you exist in other people's awareness, which could be good, neutral, or actively harmful depending on what's being said and who's saying it. Can you distinguish between being noticed and being valued? One is just visibility, the other is respect. They're not the same. Because here's what word on the street creates: it suggests underground knowledge, secret information, things being said that you're not privy to, but that supposedly matter. And that suggestion, it triggers curiosity and anxiety simultaneously, makes you want to know what's being said, makes you worry about what narratives are circulating, makes you feel like you're missing information about yourself. But word on the street is just dramatic framing for I'm claiming people are talking. There's no street. There's no underground intelligence network discussing you. There's just content using language that makes normal social dynamics sound mysterious and significant. Are you responding to actual information or to dramatic framing? Strip away the style and assess the substance. Because I need to address highly desired specifically. Desired for what? By whom? In what context? The phrase is deliberately vague. Could mean romantically desired, could mean professionally desired, could mean desired as friend, as collaborator, as anything. And that vagueness, it lets you fill in whatever form of desirability you're seeking, lets you project your hopes onto empty statement. So you hear highly desired and you imagine the context you want it to mean. And you feel validated by your own projection while crediting the content with seeing your desirability. But content didn't specify anything. You did all the work of making it meaningful. What form of desirability are you hoping for? Notice that hope existed before the prediction activated it. Because here's what this content is actually doing: it's flattering you, making you feel important, sought after, discussed, desired, creating feeling of significance and value. And flattery works. It bypasses critical thinking, makes you more receptive to whatever comes next, makes you trust source that's making you feel good about yourself. But flattery isn't insight. Flattery isn't seeing you accurately. Flattery is technique for generating engagement by telling people what they want to hear about themselves. So when you feel good consuming this content, when you feel validated by claims about being talked about and desired, you're being manipulated. Skillfully, maybe, but manipulated nonetheless. Can you recognize flattery as technique rather than as truth? This protects you from being led by your ego, because I want to talk about what being highly desired actually means. If it's true if multiple people genuinely want access to you, want relationship with you, want your time or attention or presence, that creates pressure, creates demand on your resources, creates need to discern who actually deserves your engagement versus who just wants something from you. It's not purely positive, it's complicated. It requires boundaries. It requires saying no repeatedly. It requires protecting yourself from people who want to consume you. So, highly desired isn't just flattering status, it's responsibility, it's work, it's constant navigation of other people's wants and your actual capacity. Content selling it as purely positive is lying about the reality of being in demand. Are you romanticizing something that would actually be complicated if true? Consider full reality instead of just ego gratifying aspects. Because here's what people who are actually highly desired experience: they don't need content to tell them. They experience it directly through constant requests, through people pursuing them, through having to manage more interest than they have capacity for. They don't find it purely flattering. They find it exhausting. They develop sophisticated filtering systems. They get very clear about boundaries because without them, they'd be consumed. They don't consume content about being desired. They consume content about how to protect their energy, how to say no effectively, how to maintain boundaries with people who want access. So, if you're consuming content about being highly desired rather than experiencing the actual complexity of managing demand, you're probably not actually highly desired. You're probably just being flattered by content that knows desirability is universal human want. What's your actual experience versus what you're being told? Trust direct experience over flattering predictions. Because I also need to address the surveillance aspect. People are talking about you creates feeling of being watched, of being subject of attention, of needing to be aware that you're being discussed. And that feeling it can be activating can make you self-conscious, can make you perform for imagined audience, can change your behavior based on who might be watching or discussing. That's not empowering. That's giving invisible others control over how you show up. So if content telling you people are talking makes you change how you behave, makes you more self-conscious, makes you perform, you're being controlled by content that might be making up the surveillance entirely. Are you modifying your behavior based on supposed talk? Examine whether you're being influenced by claims you can't verify. Because here's what you actually need to understand. Some people probably do talk about you occasionally. That's normal. Humans discuss other humans. You exist in other people's awareness and sometimes get mentioned. And some people might find you attractive, interesting, valuable in some capacity. That's also normal. Most people have qualities others appreciate, but neither of those realities requires content to point them out. Neither needs to be framed as highly desired or word on the street. They're just normal aspects of social existence. So, content making them sound significant, making them sound like special status you've achieved, making them sound like information you need. That's just inflation. Taking normal social dynamics and making them sound extraordinary so you will feel extraordinary and therefore engage? Can you recognize when normal is being sold as special? This keeps you grounded in reality instead of inflated by flattery. Because ultimately, here's what this comes down to: content is telling you people are talking and that you're highly desired. It's activating your ego, making you feel important, bypassing your critical thinking through flattery. And you can consume that, can let it make you feel good temporarily, can ride the ego boost it provides. But that boost, it's empty calories. It's not building actual confidence. It's not creating real value. It's just temporary feeling of significance that fades as soon as you stop consuming content that reinforces it. Real confidence comes from knowing yourself, from building competence, from contributing value, from treating yourself and others with integrity, not from being told you're being talked about and desired. So if you want actual self worth, actual confidence, actual sense of value, stop consuming flattery. Start doing things worth respecting yourself for. Start building life that creates real significance instead of consuming content that manufactures feeling of significance. That's where your power is, not in being desired, but in being worth desiring. Not in being talked about, but in being worth discussing. And you build that through actions, through character, through choices that align with your values, not through consuming content that tells you you're already there without doing the work. So, what will you choose? More flattery that keeps you passive, or actual work that builds actual worth? Your choice determines whether you build real confidence or just addiction to external validation. Choose accordingly, because I'm done. This is actually the end. No more dismantling of manipulative content formulas. No more explaining how techniques work. No more revealing the mechanisms. You either get it now or you don't. You either choose differently or you don't. Your life, your choice, your consequence. I've said what needed to be said. Being talked about means nothing without context. Being desired means nothing without discernment about who's desiring you and why. Stop seeking validation through claims about your social currency and start building actual value through your actions. Your worth isn't determined by gossip or desire. It's determined by who you actually are when nobody's watching and nothing's flattering you. Build that. Everything else is noise.